Welcome to another live stream. This is the Dan Norton Show. It is Wednesday, May 28th, 2025. I see we've already got a few people here and several likes. That's great to see. Thank you. I've got a call-in show here, and I posted in today's title, want to chat about philosophy, metaphysics, epistemology, ethics, politics. So this is a very broad array of topics I'm open to talking about. So I'm here to chat about any of that and any other topics people want to bring up. So you drive the topics, at least to a large extent. Feel free to put any comments or questions in the chats. That can give me some material to start working with. I'm here to promote Ayn Rand's philosophy of objectivism, philosophy of reason, egoism, and capitalism. And you can participate either in the live chats or by calling in. So I've got a call screen number, which is pinned in the chat. And that number is 657. Sorry, I had to get rid of an echo there. The call screen number is 657 233 0878. And if you're a first-time caller, you might need to go through that call screening process. If you're a repeat caller, then there's a different number you can use. Call directly into the Zoom waiting room. I use Zoom for my callers. And there's also a web link to Zoom, so you don't have to dial a phone number at all. You can just hit that link that's pinned in the chat. But if you do want to dial in by phone onto Zoom, the number is 669-444-9171. And then you will be prompted to enter a meeting ID, which is 821-5018-6396 pound. And then press pound one more time, and that will get you into the Zoom waiting room. So those are the call-in instructions, and the lines are open. So someone left a voicemail on the call screen number last time, but I didn't have the window open that I needed to have open in order to see that. The person eventually got through on Zoom, but I do have that other window open that I need to have to monitor for the call screening number. So hopefully, if anyone tries to call that number, I'll see it this time or hear it. And then what was that? I was going to say something. I forgot what I was going to say. Anyways, yeah, so those are the call-in instructions. All right, I see we got our first chat of the day. Aaron Alfesh says, yo. Hi, Aaron. Welcome. I think I've seen you here maybe once before, but welcome back. It's always good to see new people in the chats and old people. The more the better, I guess, as long as they're not trolls. Um, so feel free to just say hello in the chat too. You don't even have to put a question or a comment. You can just say hi. I always like to know who's here watching. Um, but of course, if you want to be anonymous, then you don't have to do that. So, anyone want to get us started with some topics, some questions, comments, anything? If not, maybe I could say a little about what I've been reading lately. That's one thing I do a lot when I'm not streaming. Most of what I am doing, um, at least when I'm doing some kind of work, is I'm reading about history. I've been focused on the history of Israel lately, the period before the state of Israel began, so in 1948. So before that was the period of the British mandate in Palestine from 1920 to 1948. The British were in control there after World War II. The Ottoman Empire had lost in the war. They were on the side of Germany. And then the Ottoman Empire was partitioned, and part of their empire was Palestine, where the state of Israel is today. And the French and the British went into that area, and they ran what's called mandates, League of Nations mandates. Um, so there was some relatively advanced power that was charged with um, being in control of these areas until the local populations became advanced enough to run the place themselves. So Britain and France were relatively advanced, and France had control over Syria and Lebanon. Britain had control over Palestine and Iraq. Um, so that period when Britain was in control of Palestine is what I've been reading about lately. I've especially been interested in reading about the riots. So there were some riots in Jerusalem in 1920, and there were some again in the next year, 1921. There was the Jaffa riots. Jaffa is on the coast, so Jerusalem is inland a bit. I don't know how many miles, but Jaffa is on the coast, very close to Tel Aviv. And in 1921, there were some riots in Jaffa. And then in 1929, there were riots in various places in Palestine, including Hebron, which is a little bit south of Jerusalem. And there was a massacre there, and in other places in Palestine. So that's what I was actually reading about today, the 1929 Palestine riots. There was some, they were pretty brutal. You might say savage. Maybe I can read a little from the Wikipedia article I was reading to provide some details. But that's what I've been reading about, as well as other related events in the aftermath of World War One, the various conferences, like the Paris Peace Conference. There was a conference in London, a conference in San Remo, Italy, um, that were deciding how this area of the world was going to work um, after uh, the mandate powers stepped in. Okay, so we got another chat here from Aaron. He says, listened to an anti-realist and realist morality debate slash discussion, and it's terrifying how confused they are. They do not acknowledge that consciousness has an identity. Okay. Um, so those are terms anti-realist and realist, which I don't think much in terms of. I don't really think at all in terms of those, but I know they have certain meanings in philosophy, and I can't say I'm very familiar with the meanings they have in ethics or morality. I've read a bit about it, but I'm not very well versed in it. But those terms, they don't come up in the objectivist literature in connection with ethics, at least. I know in epistemology, in Ayn Rand's book, Introduction to Epistemology, sorry, Introduction to Objectivist Epistemology, that's the title. Um, there is a foreword in which she discusses various schools of thought on the what's called the problem of universals, um, or you could also call it the problem of concepts or the one in the many. So we have these abstract terms like um, car, and that can refer to a particular Honda, a particular Mercedes, a particular Ferrari. But what is it in virtue of which we call all of those things a car, despite all their differences? Um, what is it that justifies using this one term to apply to these different things? This is the problem of universals. That's what it's been called historically. And there are various schools of thought on that. So one is called Platonic realism. That's why I thought of it, because this term realism has other usages outside of morality. There's also usage when it comes to this epistemological or metaphysical issue of the problem of universals. So there's Platonic realism, moderate realism, which I think is often been attributed to Aristotle. But I don't think there's much, maybe none, no discussion of realism in the context of ethics in the objectivist literature. So, which is the literature of philosophy that I'm most familiar with. And when I was in graduate school, I didn't spend much time focused on ethics. I took some classes or seminars in ethics, but relatively little. I'm not very comfortable or familiar with these terms, realist and anti-realist, as they relate to ethics. But maybe that's something we can discuss more later. Um, I see some other chats coming in from Abdul, Sami Husseini. Um, Let me just see if there's anything else I wanted to say about Aaron's comments. Oh, I see Abdul has entered the waiting room on Zoom. Okay, I might need to screen you first, Abdul, some more, since I don't know you. You're new to my channel, but let me just see if there's anything else I wanted to say about Aaron's comments. So he says it's terrifying how confused they are. They do not acknowledge that consciousness has an identity. Okay, I'm wondering what the connection there is, because that seems like a very metaphysical kind of issue, consciousness having identity. I wonder why or how that came up in a morality debate slash discussion. Not sure what the connection there is. Um, but this idea that consciousness has identity is one that Ayn Rand is very much in favor of. Um, so everything is something in particular. To be is to be something. There is no existence without identity. That's a deep idea in the objectivist metaphysics. You can't be something without being something in particular. Imagine someone says, like, I have this thing in my pocket. And you say, okay, well, what is it? What in particular do you have? Do you have a rock? Do you have a pencil? Do you have a phone? No, it's none of those things. Okay, can you describe it a little? Is it like larger than 2 inches? Nope. Is it smaller than 4 inches? Nope. Well, if you just deny every trait you want to apply to this potential thing, you might say, well, you really have nothing there, right? If it has no traits, if it's nothing in particular, if it's not this color or this size or this weight, if it's just nothing in particular, then it's really nothing at all. So to be is to be something, something in particular. Everything has to have a specific identity to exist at all. Um, but that's, I guess, is denied by some philosophers, maybe by implication. I think there's a way in which Kant denies that. Um, but maybe I'll hold off on that for now. Let me just, Abdul, I'm going to go back. All right, now I'm going to come to Abdul for a little while. Like to spread the time around some. So, oh, I see we got some 100% and various emojis floating up in the chat box. That's nice to see. So thanks for those. I like that engagement. Um, all right, so I see Aaron came back with another chat, but let me just read this new ones from Abdul. He says he just found my channel. Hey, sir, I just found your channel. Can you give me a roadmap on how to start philosophy? And then he says, Sir, I just got my heart broken by a girl. How do you think philosophy will help me better? Like, will it make me whole or make me a madman? Hmm. Well, maybe it depends on the kind of philosophy you accept. What I do here on my channel is I try to introduce people to Ayn Rand's philosophy and discuss. It doesn't have to just be an introduction. Some people are quite familiar with Ayn Rand already who come to my channel. Others are completely new to it. So this can be an introduction, or it could be a conversation that presupposes you already know something about it, just depending on who you are. But I talk to people in both categories. So I guess you're in the category of people who are new to philosophy, not even Ayn Rand's philosophy, but maybe new to philosophy at all. It looks like, since you're asking how to philosophy. There is an essay by Ayn Rand called "Philosophy Who Needs It." It's free online, by the way. So if you just Google that, you can find it. And I think that's an excellent introduction to the field of philosophy, not just her philosophy. She actually doesn't discuss her philosophy specifically in that essay. It's more of an introduction to the field as a whole. So I would, and that was actually the first thing I ever read by Ayn Rand. I think that's a great essay and a great introduction to philosophy. And I think implicitly, her philosophy is shaping some things in in that essay, but it's not really focused explicitly. But in any case, I would recommend that as a place to start. There's a whole book called "Philosophy Who Needs It," and that essay is the first essay in that book, which is, as I said, it's free online. Okay. And if you have the right philosophy, I think that'll help you with all kinds of problems, including this one that you mentioned. You say you got your heart broken by a girl. How do you think philosophy will help you? Well, I guess one way it could help you is by orienting you towards reality as opposed to some other supernatural realm or being that you might pray to. You might like pray that you have better luck in a future relationship. But I don't think that's a solution. I don't think there is a supernatural being or realm. Um, I think there's just this world that we can perceive with our senses and know with our reason. And that's a secular, non-religious kind of worldview, which is what Ayn Rand holds. She's a this worldly thinker. And I think that's the right kind of orientation. And you could use your reason to try to figure out what the problem was. Um, so, reason is our basic tool of survival. That's one of Ayn Rand's fundamental principles. It's how we survive. And we use reason to figure out how the world works, to discover new scientific principles, which enable us to create new technology like the internets, which we're using right now to have this conversation. All that is a product of reason, not faith. We didn't just close our minds and pray to some God to give us knowledge. That wasn't how we figured out how the world works. Rather, we thought about things. We used our rational minds and we followed evidence. Faith is believing things without evidence. Reason is basing all your beliefs on evidence, things you can observe with your senses and understand by using logic. And it applies to all of your life. So not just discovering scientific principles, but how to navigate personal issues like your relationships with other people. So if you had a problem in this relationship with a girl, you could think about it and ask questions. What caused the problem? Um, and by using your mind, maybe you can figure out something useful that will help things go better in the future. So that's one way a certain philosophy will help you, a philosophy of reason, as opposed to a philosophy of faith, which I think might just make things worse because faith is turning off reason, and that's going to make things worse, not better. So, one piece of advice I would say is use your mind, think about things, and maybe that will help you out. Okay, looks like Abdul dropped out of the waiting room. So he says, oh, but he's still in the chat. He says, thanks, sir. You're welcome. Thanks for participating. I appreciate it. And thanks everyone for being here. Thanks for the likes. Thanks for the subscriptions. Trying to grow this channel. So if you want to help out with that, definitely helps if you subscribe and like this show. That'll help push it out in the algorithm. And you can be one of the first 1,000 subscribers. If you subscribe, well, I don't know when I'm going to hit that point, but that'll be a nice milestone to hit. And if you want to be part of the first 1,000, there's still a chance if you want to subscribe now. All right. See, we got some more comments from Aaron. Let me go to some of those. He says, so he's back on consciousness. He says, by consciousness having an identity, meaning there are facts and objective requirements that sustains and make possible the achievement of a proper human life, which is universal and objective. All right, I might have to read that again to process that. But let me just read the next one. He says, the anti-realists reject that and say that hey, there is this guy who burns himself or a guy who takes pleasure in killing. Who is to say they are wrong? No standards at all. The realists say there is an objective and universal morality, but they base it on consensus because most people seem to think or intuit torturing a cat is evil, so it must be universally bad. Okay, I didn't really follow that much. Sometimes I need to read things multiple times to get a good grip on the point that's being made, and that's definitely the case here. You're reminding me of another YouTuber by the name of Lance Independent. At least that's the name he goes by on YouTube. And I think he is very much in favor of an anti-realist position. And I think that's a important focus of his YouTube channel. So if you're interested in this issue, maybe that would be a source that you would find interesting. I've looked at, I've watched a few of his videos, but I don't regularly watch it, but I just remembered that he is a person who you might be interested in if this topic of anti-realism and realism interests you. I remember having a discussion on the forum Discord. Some of you might be familiar with that. And I think that was the forum where someone was discussing realism and anti-realism with me. And I, I, I think I started out the discussion saying, well, I don't really know which one you would consider me to be, but you can ask me some questions and then then you can decide whether I fit your description of a realist or an anti-realist when it comes to ethics. And I believe this person concluded I was ultimately an anti-realist. And I think if I'm recalling correctly, this was 2 or 3 years ago, maybe. It was because I thought morality depended on an agent. It was relative to an agent. Like if you say something is good, that implies good for. a certain agent or person. Like something can't just be good, period. It's good for someone. Like a banana, like take a banana. The banana is not good in itself, just period. It's good for a monkey, right? If the monkey wants food and it's hungry and it's trying to live, it's good for the monkey. Or if it's good for a human. If a human is hungry and it needs something to eat, and a banana is the only thing available, well, then the banana is good for that human. So good and bad, they are stance dependent. I think that's a term they sometimes use. Depending on your stance, depending on your position relative to something, that something is good or bad for you, as opposed to being stance independent. It doesn't matter what relation the banana has to anything else in the universe. It's just good, period. I think in objectivist terminology, we might call that an intrinsicist view of the good. Something is just good in itself, independent of its relationship to anything else. But that's not the objectivist view. The good is a relational sort of concept. It depends on there being a relation between you and some other sort of thing which you evaluate as good for you, or at least for someone. But it's not just good, period, full stop. That would be an intrinsicist view of the good. And my my impression, not being very familiar with this sort of area of academic philosophy, is that the anti-realists, they, I guess, maybe I think maybe this is why this term realism is used, because I just thought of the connection with Platonic realism in epistemology, which I was discussing before. Um, I guess sometimes the way realism is used, it implies there's something out in the world independent of consciousness or a mind. It just is part of external reality. It's just out there. It's real in a sense. And Plato had this view of concepts or universals, like the form of goodness or justice. They existed in this other world, the world of forms, independent of any mind or consciousness. They didn't necessarily have any relation to a consciousness. They were just in reality. Well, likewise, with ethical concepts like good or bad, you might think they have a kind of existence independent of the mind. And maybe that's why the realists hold that things can be good independent of their relation to an agent, whereas the anti-realists say, no, there is no good or bad independent of an agent, just out there in reality. There only is such a thing in relation to some agent. That would be my guess. Sounds pretty good to me as a reasonable guess as to why these terms realism and anti-realism are used in ethics. So if that's the right way to understand these terms, then yeah, I guess I would be an anti-realist. Just like in epistemology or metaphysics, I would say I'm a anti-realist because I don't think concepts like car, to use that example from before, or man, or any other concept are independent of an agent. Okay, so let's see. Having said all that, maybe I should take another look at Aaron's comments. Let me first. Oh, I see. Dennis has entered the waiting room on Zoom. Now, I can think of a Dennis. I don't know if it's the Dennis that I have in mind. So I'd like to know who this Dennis is before I admit Dennis onto Zoom. Oh, and I just reminded myself, I need to turn off the features that allow Zoom participants to start their own video or audio, because I want to get in the habit of when I let someone onto a call, I first have to ask them to unmute, or I have to give them permission to turn on their video rather than them being able to just start their video or audio on themselves on their own, because sometimes a troll might come on here and try to disrupt the stream. That has happened. So to avoid that possibility, I want to turn off the video and audio for when someone comes on. Um, but Dennis, could you please identify yourself? Oh, I see you just said, yeah, that's me in the chat. Okay. I recognize this Dennis, so I feel pretty safe about letting him on. So let me just uh, see if I can send you. I'm going to experiment with something. I want to send you a chat in the Zoom waiting room, Dennis, and then see if you can reply to that. Actually, I don't even have to start the chat. I think you can initiate the chat in the waiting room. I don't know that it really matters. But I want to test that feature out because I haven't really done that before. I see some more chats here from Abdul, um, and maybe I'll get to those later and maybe spend some more time on Aaron's chats as well. But I like to also take calls, and I haven't taken a call yet. So I want to spend some time on the call, and then maybe after that, I will I will come back to the chat. Dennis says, "I don't think I can." I guess you mean you don't think you can initiate a chat. Well, right now I haven't admitted you yet, but as soon as I admit you, then I think you will be able to initiate a chat. So I'm going to admit you right now. Okay, I just admitted you, and you're muted, and I have not yet asked you to unmute, so don't worry about that. Let's just test out the chat. See if you can, and then after that, let you unmute. Can you try to send me a chat in Zoom right now, Dennis? I want to see if that works. Oh, okay, good. Looks like it worked. He says, here it's me from YouTube and Facebook. I'll just say hi back, and I'm gonna ask you to unmute. Okay, I just hit ask to unmute. So any second,
Hello, can you hear me?
Dennis. Hi, Dennis. Hey, I can hear you. Yeah, welcome.
Oh, great. Thanks. I have you on the speaker, so you will hear yourself, I guess, if you speak through my microphone. But I can mute myself when you do.
Yeah, it's probably a good idea to mute yourself so that you don't get confused or I don't get confused by any echo. So yeah,
Did
I
you
would
hear something
recommend.
right now while talking?
No, I just hear you one time. I don't hear any echo. It sounds good to me right now.
While you're speaking, you don't hear yourself back.
No.
Okay. That's I thought this will happen because when I tested the mic, I heard well, but that's probably uh, canceling that this software does. You know, it cancels the output of the system from the input and stuff like that.
Yeah, I'm not sure how it works exactly, but right now it's sounding pretty good.
um, uh, do I suggest topics or a topic
Yeah,
or
well, that's fine. I'm pretty flexible in how we do conversations. Like sometimes I invite people to just come on and I can interview them and get to know them a little bit. Or if there's a specific topic that you're interested in talking about, feel free to mention it.
I have two, three things that I want to see whether you're interested in them, and they are quite related. Um, One is determinism and things people seeing it as metaphysical, while I have a very epistemological view of it. And
Hmm.
then quantum physics, if you're interested, I studied quantum physics, and I'm extremely fascinated by measurement problem and stuff like that. Because the third thing is probabilities and people kind of interpreting them in a metaphysical way, at least in quantum physics, and thereby kind of growth measurement problem and stuff like that. It's a very interesting topic that I would love to talk to philosophers too. And if you're
Okay, I
interested
remember
in
that coming up
any of
in
that,
a previous show. I think you were the one who raised this maybe a couple of weeks or so ago. I talked a little bit about whether determinism is metaphysical or
yeah,
epistemological, and I said I thought it was metaphysical, but it could have
yeah,
epistemological implications.
yeah,
Okay, so that's one possible topic, and you said you had two or three.
yeah. One is, I mean, probabilities, kind of that they are not something metaphysical, but an epistemological category. And people seeing things like quantum physics wrongly because of this mistake. Uh, and and
Okay,
then and then the third is kind of quantum physics stuff, measurement problem, stuff like that.
okay. So these are all in the uh, deep metaphysical or epistemological area. Okay. Um, Let me think about this for a minute. Uh, um, I, I guess we could take a vote in the chat. I've never tried to do something like that, see what people are most interested in hearing about. Or I could just choose one of these. Uh, None of them is leaping out at me as making me think we should definitely start with this one. But maybe it would be good to start with the one I'm most familiar with. I'm not a physicist. I've learned a little about physics, but I think determinism is more of a philosophical issue than a physics kind of issue. I don't think you need to be a specialist about physics to really understand that issue. So maybe we should start with yeah, let's try starting with the determinism issue. And
All right. Yeah.
as I mentioned, I did say some things about it in a previous live stream, and I said I thought it was a metaphysical doctrine. So just for anyone who doesn't know, the way I understand determinism, it's this idea that there's only one path in the future, and it's necessarily going to be that path. Like you were determined to listen to this live stream today on Wednesday, May 28th, 2025. Um, you could not have done anything differently. And whatever you do tomorrow, that was the only thing you could have done tomorrow. There was no choice about it. There's only one path through reality. Um, Whereas if you accept a view like indeterminism, you might think actually there are multiple paths into the future, um, and it could just be random as to which path is taken. Um, but then there's also a free will view, which I think could be contrasted with both determinism and indeterminism. It's on the free will view, there are multiple paths you could take, but it's not random which one you take. It's an issue of choice. So I chose to do certain things, but I didn't just randomly find myself doing them. I chose to do them. There's a lot more that could be said about this, but I just want to lay out the landscape of a few possible views you could have. And now, whether you can predict what path something is going to take or not, I take that to be an epistemological issue, which is separate from determinism. On my view, determinism is simply the idea that there's only one path into the future, whether or not you can predict what that path is. Now, it sounds like you might have a different view of determinism and you think of it more as an epistemological issue of prediction, but I don't want to put words in your mouth. So why don't you say how you understand it? Can you hear me? Oh, you're muted right now. Oh, I have to ask you to unmute again. Okay, I don't know why, but I just hit ask to unmute.
Yeah, I muted myself, but I can't unmute myself.
Oh, okay. Yeah, there's no need to mute yourself when I'm talking, unless there was like a echo or feedback problem, but I haven't noticed that. So feel free to just leave it unmuted if you want.
All right. Um, you answered to my, I asked you about it, and you answered, and then I wrote something, a second thing in the chat, and you read it out loud, but didn't comment on it or something. Um, which is where I said that my point is, or what I'm thinking about is that if you claim determinism, you have to prove determinism, right?
If you claim determinism is true, you have to prove it's true.
Yes. I mean,
Well, I don't know
if
why
you
you would claim it
if you
unless you
mean,
already had some kind of evidence for it. I mean, I guess you could. You could just assert it arbitrarily. But I think typically when people claim determinism is true, it's because they think they have some evidence, like some evidence from science. I think many philosophers claim that science supports determinism,
yeah,
and that's their reason for accepting it. I don't think that's right. I don't think science actually does support determinism. And I think you can
yeah,
make the
me
case
neither.
that science presupposes the falsity of determinism, but maybe I'll save that for later. But in any case, I think if you're going to claim determinism, you should already have some kind of evidence that you think supports the truth of that claim.
So, and let's look at this. If you know exactly how the universe works, you can claim determinism, right? If you can explain everything, I mean, maybe that itself is a contradiction, because you know, objectivism will argue that you can only have a rational process when there is no determinism and stuff like that. But mm,
Well, I guess, yeah, if you could
but if
explain
I
everything, I think that would imply determinism because that would include choices. Because if you can explain everything, well, a choice is a thing, so it would imply you could also explain choices. But on if you accept free will, then there really is no explanation of someone's choice, or at least their primary choice. There is a distinction in objectivist literature between primary choices and secondary choices. But if we're talking about the primary choice, which is the choice to focus your mind or not, this is on objectivism's view, but the root or fundamental choice that humans have is it's to focus your minds or not. There's that's just kind of a brute choice someone makes, and you can't get underneath that and say why the one person did that and another person didn't, or why a given person did it at one time but did not do it at a different time. All you can say is they chose it. So if you could explain everything, and that means you could also explain why someone chose a given choice, a given primary choice to focus their mind or not, then that would imply they're not really making a choice. If you could explain it in a sense of meaning, like you could show why it had to go this way rather than this other way. And if you could show it had to go this way, well, then it's not really a choice. It's determined what it was going to be. So I don't know if that. Oh, do I have to unmute you again? Oh no, you're still unmuted. I don't know if that made sense or if you want to.
would you say that, the whole idea of being able to explain everything is a contradiction in itself?
I guess it would contradict at least free will. I don't know if I would say it's a contradiction in itself, but I think the idea that you can explain everything. Well, maybe it depends on what you mean by explain everything. If that means if that means that you can give an account of why everything happened and could not have happened any differently, then I would say it's not possible to explain everything because that would negate free will. And I think free will is true. I believe humans do have free will. But if you mean something else by explain everything, then maybe there is some other sense of explain everything that is compatible with the existence of free will. So I guess it just depends on what exactly do you mean by saying you can explain everything.
But I'm just thinking about the people so claim so confidently determinism, and I'm thinking about, well, what it be that a proof would be if they would try to even be rational about it, and I thought about this, and also in connection to probabilities and how people think about these things, and that people mix up so fundamental things like
So you're
metaphysics.
wondering like how do people become confident that they have proof that determinism is true?
Yeah, they people claim that science says whatever, even though kind of everybody also knows that quantum physics is probabilistic and so on. It kind of doesn't make sense, but still people claim that. Uh, uh,
Yeah. Okay, I
and
think
and
maybe
and 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 I just um, because I organized the Ayn Rand meetup Vienna, and there we discussed philosophy, and I discussed with a person and who argued for determinism. It's science says it science proves determinism, something like that, and
yeah,
and
yet
and also and
there's
also the question of people actually seeing quantum physics as random, but random in a metaphysical way, as if things are jumping around instead of prob- as probabilistically, just as the probabilities just being epistemological, and just the connections between these things is very interesting to me.
okay. I think I see a new point I can make based on what you just said, which I, I think it's helpful what you just said because it is commonly recognized by philosophers today that physicists think they're, or many physicists at least, I won't say all of them, but physicists often believe there is indeterminism, particularly in the quantum realm. So why are philosophers so confident in determinism? Now, I think uh, so in indeterminism in the quantum realm in physics, where things just happen randomly, they're not, and it's not like we just can't predict them, or they're very hard to predict. It's just in reality they happen randomly. So this is what uh, I think you could call it metaphysical randomness.
Yeah,
Um, Particle just swerves one way rather than another way, and there's no way to account for it. It just does. So that is a more popular view in physics, starting I think in the early 20th century. Um, and prior to that, I think determinism was more a more common view. I mean, there were people like Epicurus in the ancient world, ancient Greece, um, who posited that there were things called, well, they've come to be called Epicurean swerves, which is basically this idea that the world is made up of particles, and sometimes these particles would just swerve unaccountably one way rather than another. Um, but I guess since the era of modern science, like in the scientific revolution, Galileo, 17th century, since around that time up until the 20th century, I think determinism was a more popular view among scientists. But starting in the early 20th century, around the time of Heisenberg, um, indeterminism became a more popular view. But I think a lot of philosophers, maybe they just haven't updated their terminology. They might, I think many would acknowledge and say, yeah, okay, it's not all determined. There is some quantum indeterminism, but there's still no free will. I mean, that's not enough for there to be free will. I think that's really the issue. Like, do humans have control over themselves? And if you're just subject to randomness, random Epicurean swerves or in your brain, which cause you to do some things. Well, that's no help to free will. You're no more in control of yourself if you're subject to metaphysical randomness than if you're subject to just pure determinism. In either way, you're not in control of yourself. So, and I can think of one philosopher in particular, David Papineau, who I wrote a lot about in my when I was doing my doctoral work. He's one of the main figures I engage with in my dissertation. I remember in his book, Thinking About Consciousness, that's the name of his book. I think it's there where he has like a footnote saying, okay, well, yeah, maybe not everything is determined because there's quantum indeterminism, but that doesn't really affect the essence of my argument. So I'm just going to kind of bracket that and maybe speak in terms of determinism going forward just for simplicity. But really, I think my guess would be that most philosophers these days would acknowledge there is both, there is indeterminism in the universe, but it doesn't really help free will. I mean, some philosophers do try to argue that indeterminism is what makes room for free will, but they don't they don't think that there's a third form of causation in the universe. So there's determinism, that's one. There's indeterminism or the metaphysical randomness, that's two. And then there's a third form of causation, which you could call free will, where you're neither determined nor subject to randomness, but you have control over what happens. I think the vast majority of philosophers today would deny there is a third form of causation. But for simplicity's sake, they might just say, I'm a determinist, even if they acknowledge, okay, yeah, there also is indeterminism in the quantum world. Um, so I don't know if that helps or clarifies any thought you were having about this, but that was something I wanted to mention that thought. What I just said was triggered by your last segment. So, but let me pause here and see if you want to say anything at this point.
Would you agree that um, mm, the fact that quantum physics is probabilistic builds a wall to ever a rational claim of determinism, because probabilities are epistemologically lack of knowledge, and if that's the most fundamental you have, you know, about the universe is a lack of knowledge. um, how does that ever allow for the claim, for a rational claim of determinism, knowing that things are determined? That's how the two topics come together for me, and that's why I talk about determinism in a very epistemological way. Because
Okay. Just
because I
one
think about
second.
the proof and this kind of principle, you know, kind of excluding proof inside of our knowledge.
Okay. Just one second. I see somebody else has entered the waiting room. I'm not going to take your call right now. I'm just going to hit the view button, which I think will make you show up in a different window. But I don't recognize your name. So if you are this other person who has tried to call in on Zoom, I'm going to need to screen you some because I need to screen my first time callers at least. I know Dennis because I recognize him from somewhere else, so I didn't have to screen him. But uh, I'd like you to identify yourself on YouTube if that's you in the waiting room on Zoom, and I might have you also call the screening number that I have pinned in the chat. So please, I guess you could do both of those things. You could call the number, the screening number, and you could also identify yourself in the YouTube chat. I guess that would be best if you did both of those things. Um, but if I am going to take that call later, I'm going to need to screen you some first. Okay. Um, do you want to come back to Dennis? Uh, So Dennis, you were saying that the I didn't get all of it, but it was something about probabilist the probable nature of quantum physics is a refutation of the deterministic nature. And I didn't really catch your question. I'm sorry. Could you restate your last point that you were making?
The fact that we clearly lack knowledge to describe quantum physics, and therefore we only have statistics where we can say, well, in 7 out of 10 cases I will be right about my prediction. This fact, on the most fundamental scale of the universe, that our knowledge is this, excludes any rational claim of determinism about knowing that the universe is determined, because it doesn't make sense to me if 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 it's just not there. The evidence for it exactly the opposite. There is lack of evidence for it.
Yeah, because there's so I guess if they have some reason to think that the probabilistic nature of quantum physics is just epistemological, then then maybe they could claim that metaphysically determinism is true, but I don't know why. Like I don't know how you could know that something is um, merely epistemological. Like if I'm a quantum physicist and I'm studying subatomic particles and I can only observe probabilities. Like when I shoot this particle through a slit, isn't there some famous experiment called the two slit experiment or something?
Yeah, double
I
slit
forget.
experiment.
As I said, I am not. I don't know. I'm definitely not an expert in physics, but they shoot some particle
Yeah,
that's
double slit experiment. It's
double
called.
slit. Yeah, that's the one I was thinking of. And 70% of the time it goes in the slit on the right, and only 30% of the time it goes to the slit on the left. And that's that's just what you observe. You can't really say why. Now, does that justify you in saying, well, it's just irreducibly probabilistic? Or should you say, well, maybe if I just study this some more, maybe there's some experiment I could do that would show why it goes to the right when it goes to the right, and why it goes to the left when it goes to the left. And then at that point, I can say it's deterministic. But since I'm not there yet, since I have no account of it, should I just is it premature to just say it's just irreducibly random? I don't know. I haven't really thought about that. Like, at what point you would have to say, well, I've exhausted all the possible explanations there could be, so I just have to say there's irreducible randomness in the universe. Um, I don't know if quantum physicists are at that sort of point, um, where they're justified in assuming just irreducible randomness, or if they should keep pressing on and trying to find out, why the probabilities are as they are. Um, yeah, so I guess I don't know if today in 2025 physicists are at a point where they are justified in claiming there's just irreducible randomness in the universe or indeterminism.
Then, then let me quote my physics professor who got a Nobel Prize, I think in 22 or 23, I don't know. He said at his speech that Einstein said God doesn't uh, throw dice, and Anton Zeilinger said he does, and something like that. So
Oh, your professor
that's
said that.
that sounds to me like he believes in metaphysical randomness.
Do you want to say who your professor is? I'm curious now. You don't have to, but
That's Anton Zeilinger. He also uh,
oh, I th
1997. He, I guess, I
I
don't
think
know
I've
whether
seen
he.
this name. Yeah, I just Googled him, Anton Zeilinger. Anton Anton Zeilinger Zeilinger. Yeah, I've come across his name, I think, but I couldn't have told you where I heard the name. But yeah, you're reminding me of uh, a period a few years ago where I learned a tiny bit about this guy. So he's your professor.
He
Interesting.
was my professor more than 10 years ago. He got a Nobel Prize a few years ago.
Okay. And so, on his view, Einstein is wrong when Einstein said God doesn't play dice with the universe. Zeilinger thinks God does play dice
I
with.
think he said something to that effect.
Okay. Yeah. So I would be interested to know, like, what evidence Zeilinger has. Like, did he do some kind of experiments that's led him to conclude actually there is irreducible randomness, metaphysical randomness in the universe? Um, So I would be interested to know why he thinks that. Like what leads him to confidently say that actually there is randomness or indeterminism. So I'm curious, like if you want to introduce yourself anymore at all, like say anything about what you do. If you're are you a student or you're a working physicist now or what? You don't have to say if you don't want, but I'm curious.
I'm a software developer for more than 5 years now. I graduated my master's in physics in 2019 in April, and I did computational and also experimental quantum physics, theoretical quantum information, and experimental too. I programmed frequency generators that send out pulses to lasers to and uh, and controlled microwave signals with switches in a similar way uh, to then spin single particles to very precise degree, like 1-2%. Every possible quantum state I can prepare with a 1 or 2% certainty or error, um, and like the direction of the magnetic field of the nucleus of an atom or an electron by itself. And I rotated these things with electromagnetic fields. That's what I did in my master studies. Um, and
Hmm.
I've been reading a lot of philosophy since 2017. And I started with Seneca, and then I read this and that, and Spinoza and Plato, and Sam Harris, and at some point Ayn Rand and Leonard Peikoff and so on.
Hmm. Interesting. Okay. All right. So, well, thanks for that introduction. I don't know if you want to go back to what we were talking about, uh, or if you wanted to go to one of the other topics you mentioned. Did you want to dig it more deeply into this issue of probability, or go to a different topic now? It's up to you.
Mm. But would you, would you agree that this excludes a claim for determinism? If we have lack of knowledge what happens at the most fundamental level, doesn't that answer the question whether there is evidence? Will they know whether there is evidence for
I don't know if it decides it because as I was saying, I don't know how you determine whether you're at a point where you've exhausted all the possible explanations. Um, there is a physicist by the name of David Bohm, maybe you're familiar with him, who has a deterministic interpretation of quantum mechanics. And I think there are other people who have taken that view of quantum mechanics. Uh, I think that is a minority view among physicists. That's my impression. But I do think there are some physicists who give a deterministic account of quantum phenomena. So I don't know how to determine whether those physicists are right or rather the majority. I guess it's the majority who think no, actually, the quantum world is indeterministic. Maybe I would have to be a physicist myself to decide that. But I guess being a non-physicist, I don't think I'm in a position to say who's right on that issue.
I mean, from in my opinion, the only thing you have to know is that quantum physics gives you statistics. You're right in 7 of 10 cases, and sometimes it's 5 out of 10. And
Yeah, but how do you know
but
that that's there's no explanation of that, and that maybe in 100 years someone will do
we
some
don't have it.
experiment.
We don't have it. So, but you can also not claim it that you will have it. If you don't have it now, somehow you will have it. You know it already. I don't know.
But how do you know there's not going to be some future physicist that comes along and he says, "Oh, if you do this experiment, this will show you why it goes to the right 70% of the time, and that it has to." And it's not random. It's deterministic that it does that. I'm I'm not sure that's coherent, but maybe like a physicist will come along in the future and be able to predict which slit it goes through, and maybe it does go through the one on the right 70% of the time and the one on the left 30% of the time. But this physicist of the future is so sophisticated that he can predict which particular time it's going to go to the right and which particular time it's going to go to the left. He doesn't just have an overall probability distribution of 70 and 30. He can tell you on any particular case which way it's going to go. And maybe if he can do that, if he can show you why it has to go to the right or it has to go to the left in a given case, maybe then he could claim actually it is behaving deterministically.
And that would kind of be, if we had that proof, maybe we still couldn't kind of explain consciousness because it's so disconnected, uh, in in levels of abstraction and scale, physical scale, um, and complexity. Um, but we would kind of have on the fundamental level a proof that the world is deterministic, and we have the opposite. And for me, that's the observation that there is lack of evidence for determinism.
I guess well, you brought in consciousness. You said something about explaining consciousness. I think that brings in some different issues. I mean, free will is an aspect of consciousness. I take it to be that. Like free will is something that human consciousness, it's a feature of human consciousness. So I don't know if you were referring to free will there when you said explain consciousness, but I think consciousness is something broader than just free will. I think organisms which do not have free will might nevertheless have consciousness, like mice and fish, birds, tigers. I think they are conscious of things, but I wouldn't say they have free will. Um, so I think free will is not the same issue as or the same phenomenon as consciousness, although I think it is a form of consciousness. It's a consciousness that can control itself, it can be self-directing. Um, but I guess setting aside the issue of consciousness or free will, if you do have, if you're in the position that physicists are now, or at least what I take to be their position of, all I can observe is that, for instance, the particle goes to the right 70% of the time and goes to the left 30% of the time, and there's no explanation of that. They have, despite all their efforts to find an explanation. I guess that would at least be some evidence against determinism. I don't know if that's conclusive evidence. Maybe it is. I just don't feel like I have enough
I'm not saying it's evidence
knowledge.
against it. I'm not saying it's evidence against it. It's a clear state of a lack of evidence for it. That's the only thing that I'm
Yeah.
saying. That's the only thing that I'm saying. I'm not saying because that is the case. We have free will. I see free will also as, ability to focus your consciousness, mind, um,
Hmm.
and kind of as a direct observation. And I, not only do I not have a problem with that, I think it's brilliant. Um, it's just kind of that people do think like the determinism is true, and science kind of says it's true, even though the people also think other crazy things, that real randomness exists, and they don't understand that we are talking about probabilities. That just means statistics and nothing metaphysical, and all these things um, are just very interesting to me in connection to each other.
I think it might just be what I was saying before. I don't know if I should use the term laziness or sloppiness, but I think many philosophers these days would say, yeah, it's not all determined. Um, maybe we should say the world is indeterministic. Um, but just to keep it simple, I'm going to say it's deterministic. I think that might be how some philosophers would react to what you're saying. Like they wouldn't deny that there is indeterminism. I guess their primary concern, I think, would be to deny that there's free will or control in the sense that objectivism understands that. I mean, they do try to often come up with a sense of free will that is compatible with determinism or indeterminism. And some of these people, you could call them compatibilists. They will call themselves compatibilists. Um, I don't think that's a plausible view, but it is, I think, the dominant view among academic philosophers. But my my hunch or instinct, I don't know what term to use, is that they're more concerned with denying that there is control, as objectivism would understand that, uh, than they are than they are concerned to affirm that determinism is true rather than indeterminism. I doubt that's as important of an issue to them. Um, but let me pause for a moment. I see somebody else in the chat has asked how to call in. Daniel Dunavant asks in the chat. The instructions are pinned in the chat. There's the call screening number, and then there's a Zoom link. If you're a first-time caller, which I guess you are because I don't recognize your name, it's maybe it's best to use that. Yeah, I think you should use the call screening number. So if you call that number, then I can take your call in a separate line, and I can screen your call, and then maybe I'll take your call on Zoom after I screen it. And I think, let's see, was there, oh yeah, there's still one other person. Uh, Gubber Shib is the name that shows up on Zoom. Uh, I had asked that person to identify him or herself in the YouTube chat, but I don't see that anyone has done that. I don't see anyone in the YouTube chat claiming to be Gubber Shib in the Zoom waiting room. So I might just remove Gubber Shib from the Zoom waiting room because it could just be a troll. And I'm trying to screen out um, trolls.
Oh,
So
I have to go. I'm sorry, I have to go.
okay, all right.
Thanks for the
Well,
chat. Thanks for the
yeah.
chat.
Thanks for calling in. Appreciate it.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye bye. All right. Well, I'm glad I got to chat with Dennis. Okay, I just removed him from the Zoom room. You can remove yourself also, but if you don't do that at the end of your call, then I can also just remove you. All right, now I see Daniel from the chat. I assume has called in the Zoom waiting room, but I haven't screened Daniel. So I don't think I want to take the call yet. I think I'd like you to call the screening number that I have on Zoom, 657-233-0878. That's the screening number. Um, but I'm going to take a little break here just to read the chat um, before I take any new calls. See what's going on in the chat. So I'm glad that Dennis called in and we got to discuss at least some of his topics. He had mentioned a few different topics, and if we didn't cover everything he wants, then maybe he can call in again sometimes. I do my shows on Wednesdays and Saturdays, typically around 1 p.m. Pacific time, and I usually go for around 2 hours. But if you subscribe to my channel, then you will get a notification if you click the bell on exactly what time I go live. But those are typically the times that I live stream. All right. So we got 10 people watching now. Great. Thanks people for coming by. Definitely appreciate it if you give the stream a like if you like it, and also definitely appreciate any new subscribers. All right. So, oh, looks like one of the people dropped out of the waiting room, the one who had not identified himself in the YouTube chat. But there's still one other person in the Zoom waiting room who I wanted to screen through the call screen number. All right, I see a bunch of chats here from Raw Froglets. That's a new person. I see Jason Adams is here. Robert Nacier is here, or at least was here. I don't know how long people stick around, but I see some chats from them. Where did I leave off? I think I was reading some of Abdul's chats. Let's see. I'm up to okay, yeah, Denis's chat at 1:28 p.m. Pacific. And then Abdul, can you say more about Ayn Rand? Well, for right now, I'll just say you can explore my channel. I have a lot of info about Ayn Rand on my channel, or a lot of discussions, at least from the perspective of her philosophy. I'll just say in a nutshell, she's in favor of a philosophy of reason as opposed to faith, egoism as opposed to altruism, and excuse me, and capitalism as opposed to socialism. And there's a lot more I could say. The Ayn Rand Institute's website, I think, is a good source. AynRand.org. You can find a lot of info there. But I'll just leave it there for now. Jason Adams says it was not me before, but I may call in. I can call whenever is good. I can call the screen number as required. Okay. Yeah, I'd like to test out the screening number. I haven't taken a call through the call screening number before. So if someone wants to be the first to get screened, that would be good. Uh, and then Raw Froglet says selfishness, irrational. What do you mean by selfishness? Yeah, that's what Robert asks. He says, depends on what you mean by selfishness. Um, and then Raw Froglet says, living for one's own life or happiness. Why is that? Why would that be irrational, Raw Froglet? Why would it be irrational to live for your own life or happiness? Seems like a very rational thing to me. Um, Robert says, works for me, but then I love people. Oh, Daniel Dunavant says, do I just call the screening number on my phone? Yeah. So I guess unless you have the ability to take two phone calls, you can just hang up from Zoom if you're dialed into the Zoom. Well, I guess it looks like you hit the web link, so you didn't dial the Zoom phone number, so maybe you can still make a phone call. But in any case, yeah, just use your phone and dial that 657 number on your phone. Okay. Um, okay, looks like Raw Froglet maybe is getting insulting here towards Ayn Rand, so I might have to block you or delete your comment at least if you're going to be disrespectful. Um, I don't think I'm going to read comments that are disrespectful. I'm just reading some more of his comments here silently, because that's an advantage of being here live. You can read the comments even if I don't read them out loud, and even if they get deleted later, or if someone gets blocked later, you can still read the comments at least during the live show. I wonder if Rob Froglet has ever read Ayn Rand. Um, and then he says philosophy is useless. Science and mathematics are the only methodologies that help attain knowledge, says Raw Froglet. Um, Robert says philosophy is the study of life. Rand puts it as the study of existence, man, and man's relationship to existence in her essay, Philosophy Who Needs It. I think she says something like that. It's the study of existence, or that maybe the basic nature of existence, man, and man's relationship to existence. I think that's a nice way to put it. Jason says he left a message on my screening number. Okay. I want to hear that. Maybe I should just quickly look through the rest of the chat first. Rod Froglet says philosophy hasn't produced anything but confusion. Philosophy does not discover anything useful about life. Philosophy hasn't kept up with math, science, and economics. I do think there is a lot of bad philosophy out there, and maybe most philosophy I would say, is bad. But I think Ayn Rand's philosophy is great. But I don't know if you've ever read Ayn Rand's. Of course, many people who have read Ayn Rand are still very hostile to her and say very nasty things about her. But I think they're often just straw mans and smears. Um, oh, Daniel says I just called using my phone. Okay, I didn't hear a. Okay, well, this is interesting because I didn't hear a call come in. I see a note on my Google Voice page that says your browser might prevent calls from ringing. Change your browser settings to allow voice.google.com to play sounds. Okay, so this is a Google Voice line, and this is my first time trying to use it during a live stream. I did a test before when I was live streaming, just like on a private stream, which um, no one except one other person knew about, and that person was able to call me on Google Voice when I was live streaming on YouTube. I heard a sound letting me know the call was trying to come through, so I don't know why I didn't hear a sound this time. Do I have it muted? No. But I do see two voicemails. So let me click on this, see if I can hear it. Oh, I see. Okay, yeah, these are both from one from Jason and then one from I guess that's Daniel. I'm just going to listen to it now. And so I think I'm only going to hear this. I don't think you're going to be able to hear it on YouTube. You'll just hear like if I were to have a conversation with someone on Google Voice, that screening number, I think you would only hear my side of the conversation, not the other person. That's the way it worked when I did my test. But I guess we can see if that's actually the case. But I'm just looking at my phone now and going to my live stream. Yeah, so you might hear myself talking through my phone. Um, but I'm gonna play the voicemail from Jason Adams and see if I hear that in my earphones and also from my iPhone. Yeah, so you might hear myself talking through my phone. Um, but I'm gonna play the voicemail from Jason Adams and see if I hear that in my earphones and also from my iPhone. Okay, I just listened to Jason Adams's voicemail, which I don't think you will be able to hear. I'm just testing that right now. Thanks for your patience. Just listen to Jason Adams's. Yeah, and I don't think you could hear that. And you can confirm for me that on YouTube chat, you can confirm whether or not you were able to hear Jason's voicemail. Um, I don't see anyone say anything about it. Okay, so I'm going to assume for now at least that only I could hear the voicemail. And I guess if I can't hear the call when it initially comes in, I could at least see that it came in because there's a call log. And then I can call the person back and maybe I can do that. Oh, yeah, I could call the person back and screen it that way. Um, so Jason says slightly in the background, I heard my message. Okay, but you didn't hear it like the normal volume. You hear me talking right now. I'm guessing. I guess you just heard it because it was playing on my iPhone. Jason asked, "Do you have my number now?" Yes, I do have your number, or at least the number you called in on. I don't know if that's your main number or some separate number, but yeah, whatever number you call in to on either Zoom or Google Voice, it'll display that number on my screen. So if you don't want me to see your number, then don't call in using your phone. Um, but you might have to if I need to screen the call. Oh, Jason says not normal volume. Okay, good. I think that worked as I intended it to. Um, Uh, so you can just use the Zoom web link, and then I won't see your number, but I might not let you on unless I know you pretty well from the chats, um, because I don't want just trolls to come on here and disrupt the stream. So if I know you well from chats, like Robert and Nacier, if Robert wants to call in just by clicking the Zoom link, I am happy to let him on. I don't need to screen Robert's call because I know he's not a troll. But if you're totally new here and I have no idea who you are and you just click the Zoom link, then I think I'm probably not going to take your call. Now, if I got to know you well enough in chat over the course of several shows, so I'm confident you're not a troll, then maybe I would let you on just using the Zoom link without having to screen you through a call. But I guess for anyone else, if I don't know you well, then I'm gonna need to screen your call. Okay, but let me listen to the other voicemail. I said there were two voicemails, so I heard the one from Jason, and now I'm gonna listen to the other one. Okay, play. Okay, that was much shorter. Um, he didn't mention what he wants to talk about. He just said he called the screening number. And Jason mentioned a possible topic to discuss. Um, so, political strategy living in Europe, Jason says. I don't know if I'll read all of his voicemail. Google gives me a transcription of the voicemail. So I'm just looking at the transcription right now. Um, Political strategy living in Europe. Maybe how to convince people things about a healthcare, what a good approach would be. Okay, so that's a possible topic from Jason. Okay, maybe we can talk about that. I think I want to go first to the other person. I think that was Daniel who who left the other voicemail. I'm going to type you a message. Actually, this is also new. I've never tried. I'm trying about a bunch of new things here, so uh, I appreciate your patience. But I've got some new technology I'm trying to figure out how to use here. Right now, I just wrote, "Hi, is this Daniel?" I just typed that message in the Google Voice chat. So there's a chat feature within Google Voice, so I can text chat with someone as well as doing a call. And I just did a text chat. Now I don't know if you can see that. If he's just calling in on a phone, I don't know if he has to have a Google Voice account in order to see this text chat. But if I don't hear from him soon, maybe within a minute, then I guess I'll try to a different way of getting in touch with him. Maybe I'll call back the number that I see here for him. Oh, now I see Gubber Shib is back in the Zoom waiting room. This is the person who was there before, and then he left after I asked him to identify himself in the YouTube chat, but he never did. So I'm I don't know if that's why he left before, but anyways, he's back now. Um, okay, let me go back to the YouTube chat. Uh, Rohit, hi. I think this might be your first time in the chat. More chats from Jason. Um, Rohit says, "So you're not getting my messages?" I'm seeing your YouTube chat messages, if that's what you mean. I just been busy dealing with some other things, like the people trying to call in on Google Voice. Um, so, but I do see your YouTube chat messages, and maybe I'll engage with them some more. But I want to give priority right now to the people calling in. Um, I guess I could screen either, I could call Jason or Daniel or whoever the other person was who tried to call in on Google Voice. Okay, I don't see a reply to my text messages to the 219 number. I won't read the whole number, just area code. So maybe I'll try calling that person, or I can try calling Jason. I think this person, who I think is Daniel from the YouTube chat, tried to call in first. So I think maybe I'll give him first dibs on calling in or getting call screened. Okay, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to try to call Daniel from Google Voice and screen him. And I think what's going to happen is you're only going to hear my side of the conversation when I'm screening him. I don't think you're going to be able to hear him, which is the way I want it. But I'm going to try that. Now, I don't know if Daniel left, if he just gave up or stepped away, but anyways, I'm going to try calling him. All right, I just hit the call button. It's ringing. Still ringing. Maybe I'm going to leave a voicemail here. Yeah, it's hi, this is Dan Norton from the Dan Norton Show. I see someone called from this number at a few minutes ago, and I don't know if you are Daniel from the YouTube chat. I'm guessing that's who this is. But anyways, uh, if you want to get on the show, please try calling me back, or at least be available to take my call. You can maybe let me know if you got this voice message in the YouTube chat. All right, bye. Okay. So let me see if he is. Oh, I don't see anyone else. Maybe he left because I don't. The last message from YouTube chat was 2:21 Pacific. That was 16 minutes ago. So maybe he left. Oh, but he's still in the. Oh, maybe I should be able to communicate with him through Zoom. I'll try that because Daniel is still in the waiting room on Zoom. But I'm going to let him into the Zoom call, but he's not going to have video or audio. That's my plan. And then I'm just going to send him a text chat through Zoom because he's not replying to my text chat through Google Voice. So I'm going to try that, texting him through Zoom. All right. All right. Daniel is on the Zoom call, but he is muted and uh, there's no video. So I'm going to send you a text in Zoom right now. I just said hi, and you should be able to reply to that. Just you can just say hi back. Uh, you could have initiated this chat in Zoom also after I admitted you, but it doesn't really matter. But I don't know why. Well, I'll give him a minute to reply. So I'm trying to pre-screen Daniel here. This is not a screening call. I'm just seeing if I can make some kind of contact with him through the Zoom chat. Because I thought maybe he stepped away, but since he was still in the waiting room on Zoom, maybe he hasn't stepped away. But there's been no action from him on YouTube chats in a while or Google Voice. Uh, all right, how do I get back to my list of calls? There we go. I think I found it. Daniel Dunavant. That's the name I see on YouTube. Okay, no chat reply in Zoom from Daniel, so I don't know if he forgot he was holding on, but anyways, I think I'm gonna remove you, Daniel, because I'm not getting a reply from you. All right, remove. Okay, I have removed Daniel from the waiting room on Zoom. And that leaves one other person in the waiting room on Zoom, but that's the person who was there before, like an hour ago, and never identified himself. So I'm not going to take that. Okay, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to try to go to Jason now and screen his call um, by giving him a call at the number. Where is that number now? Oh, I got to go to the voicemail tab. There we go. So I'm going to call Jason, and I think you'll only hear my side of the conversation. I just hit call. It's ringing. Yes, it is me. So you can hear me loud and clear? Okay, I'm just going to turn on my volume on the phone to make sure I'm only hearing my side of the conversation. Hold just a sec. It's ringing. Yes, it is me. So you can hear me loud and clear? Okay, I'm just going to turn on my volume on the phone to make sure I'm only hearing my side of the conversation. Okay, it looks like it's working very well, exactly as I wanted it to. Okay, so I know you a little bit just from seeing you on YouTube, so you're not a completely random person who I have zero knowledge of. But I did want to just test out this call screening feature mainly because other people who are completely unknowns to me, I want to be able to screen them. So thanks for being part of my little experiment here. Okay, so now that I've screened you or quasi screened you, um, if you want to call in on the Zoom number, that's okay, and then we can talk about that topic you mentioned or whatever else you want to bring up. So that's if you call in on the Zoom line, then the audience will be able to hear you as well. All right. Okay. Bye. All right. So he just hung up there, and then I guess any second now, I will see him on the Zoom waiting room. While he's getting there, let me go back to my YouTube chat. So I've seen your name somewhere before, Rohits. I'm not sure where, but it looks familiar. Anyways, welcome to the show. Thanks for the likes. Appreciate the 8 likes we've got. Oh no, it's up to 10 likes now. That should help with the algorithm, help grow the channel, push it out to more people. And thanks for any new subscriptions. All right, Jason Adams is in the Zoom waiting room. I see you there. All right, I'm going to admit Jason, and he's going to be muted at first. Admits. All right, Jason is in the Zoom call, and he is unmuted. I have to hit the ask to unmute. Um, Let me just take a short break here, take a sip of water. Okay, and this might be the last call of the day. Usually I go for around 2 hours, and it's getting close to the 2 hour mark. Um, so the, I might just take this call and then we'll call it a show. Um, we'll see how it goes though. Okay, let me ask him to unmute. All
Okay.
right. Yeah, I can hear you.
Oh, very good. Very good. Well, thank you for having me on your show.
You're welcome. So you mentioned a
Um,
possible topic. Do you want to state it again for the audience or any other topic that you were interested in chatting about, maybe?
sure, I was kind of meandering, sorry, and thinking about political strategy. You know, I was at the Ayn Rand's Day down in Florida, and there's a few of us who think politics might be coming something for objectivists, but I know it's so messy. I mean, to be in that would just be awfully. I don't know if the what your thoughts are would be a strategy maybe to sit on the sidelines. And then I had some thoughts of my 30 years in Europe and how things are so attractive to people. Maybe we could play devil's advocate or something like that on Europe. But
Okay. Yeah. I would be interested if you want to introduce yourself, by the way, a little and tell my audience a little about who you are. It sounds like maybe you're in Europe right now, but I don't, you sound like you don't have a European accent, so maybe you're originally from the US.
yeah,
Um,
yeah. I'm in my mid 50s. I moved to Europe in 1992 and lived out there for about 30 years. I became interested in objectivism in around 96. Maybe more seriously, got rid of any religious baggage I had in 2004 and met up with some Czech objectivists out there. Some people who had translated works well, I helped transcribe. I didn't translate, but for Peter Schwartz, and they have a website. And there's only about six of us out there, and I know there's a Daniel out in Slovakia now. I've not met him, but yeah. So I lived out there and learned about objectivism, and I owned a bar, and I retired when my parents passed. I came back to the States and worked on inheritance matters. So I have a house there. As also my father was in Mexico, so I have a place there, and I'm in Europe. So I'm kind of a tri-patriot who travels around. So that's, I guess, that in a nutshell. Software testing, and a fun little bar that's out in Prague. I don't sound like I'm promoting it. We have a problem. You have to make a reservation, so it's not necessary. But it's a tiki bar, and you can find it with that. So I like that type of
okay.
funness.
Yeah, I've
And
never been to Czechoslovakia, but I would like to visit there someday. Um, it's okay. So you sound like a quite an international person,
thank
moving
you.
around the
Yeah,
world.
yeah.
Um,
I appreciate
uh,
that.
so politics. Yeah, by the way, I think I might be hearing a little echo. I don't know if you have this stream turned on in the background or something, but I think I heard my voice. Um,
I don't, but that's the problem. That's why I was hoping I could call you on the phone. I have you on a speaker behind me, but that's not the YouTube. The YouTube's completely on pause. So if we want to test how that works, but
well, I don't know if there's a way to turn off the speaker behind you. I mean, if it gets too distracting, maybe we can try
hang
to
on. Well,
troubleshoot it.
if you can talk to me while I try to do something. Hopefully, I won't. Let me see audio mixer and move it to the television. I'm just thinking out loud here.
Is the
Uh,
only way for you to hear me through that speaker, or do you have a different way to hear me?
let me. I should have. Sometimes the speaker goes out and it goes to my TV. I don't want it to happen, but now you're on my Bluetooth speakers. So let me put the TV thing.
Okay. I'm not hearing an echo of myself now, so
Yeah, okay.
whatever setup you have right now seems pretty good.
You're coming from the laptop instead of some stereo speakers behind me. That's just so you know what's going on. Yeah.
Okay. So,
The-
politics, strategy, I mean, that's a big topic.
I know.
And there's, I guess it's largely dependent on the particulars of your case, like as to whether you want to be like how directly you want to be engaged in it, if you want to be engaged in it at all. There's someone like Alex Epstein who actually works with members of Congress
Yeah.
on like legislation relating to energy issues, and I think he's had some success recently in getting a certain subsidies for solar and wind removed from Trump's so-called big beautiful budget bill that's been going through the House and now it's going to the Senate. So someone like Alex Epstein is super into the political process. Other people are much more removed from it. I guess I'm certainly not involved like in a direct way that Alex is, but I have some eye on what's going on. I listen to the Your Own Brooks show and I get some of my news about the world that way. And I like to comment on things from time to time. But you also might like if you go back 20 years, I hardly followed the news at all.
Yeah.
I think because it was just I found it to be depressing often, and I didn't want it to put me in a bad mood, and I didn't really see a need to follow it. It wasn't like part of my job that I had to keep up with the news. So I don't think there's any duty to know what's going on, but it might be in your self-interest to know something about what's going on in the world. So I just think, the extent to which you follow the news or engage with it or get involved with the politics or not is going to depend a lot just on the particulars of your life and what you're trying to do.
So,
But if yeah, go ahead.
well, in Europe, in my bar, I think I meet, I don't know how to say it, a little bit more of an intelligent class of people, and we're more intellectual, and we talk, and they've already made it over to Europe for some reason or another. Usually, they're living there and liking it. I come back here, it's hard to see how people think or what they take for granted or what they just assume or don't know, and I almost want to go down to here would be the Democratic Party. It's not or something where I could be and just start talking to them. Just start, you're right about this, you're wrong about, you're right about abortion, you're right about these things, and just start beating them over the head almost. But I don't know if it'd be productive. Maybe YouTubing it and showing how I can ask some questions of them on maybe a grassroots level, I guess. One thought.
I used to get in really heated, combative sorts of discussions when I was very new to objectivism, like over 20 years ago,
Me too.
over 25 years ago. And that would put me in a bad mood. Like,
Yeah.
at a certain point after, I don't know, 6 months or a year or something, I decided I wanted to have a more calm and benevolent sort of approach and have that type of conversation just because I think it was better for my happiness, my mental health, my benevolent outlook on the world. I didn't want to go through life always being bitter and angry and having nasty conversations. So I think that's something worth considering.
Yeah.
And if someone is not open to having an honest, benevolent, civil kind of conversation, then I would question whether it's really worth having the conversation at all. I think there are a lot of people who are just they're happy to engage in blood sports and so to speak, and hurl insults and ad hominems, and that's not really appealing to me. I don't enjoy
Yeah, I
that
know.
conversation. It's demotivating. So I am more motivated if I can have fun and enjoy the experience of discussing things. So I try to keep things civil on my channel, and I guess that's just one thing to consider if you're interested in engaging with people and changing their minds about things. Like you mentioned, hitting people on the head. At
I
the
know.
like
The
I
truth.
I think that's what triggered this thought. I was like, I don't really want to hit someone on the head. I want to present them with a alternative viewpoint, maybe, but I don't want to get into a nasty conversation about it. Um, but
Yeah.
maybe other people it doesn't bother as much and they're okay with that.
I hear you. I mean, I don't know. I guess I should try it and find out and go down and
Yeah.
talk to, say even the Democrats or somebody just to try and convince them they got one thing to maybe roll back executive power, make it a 1 point thing. But none of this is realistically ever going to happen. We need to, if we could have you do one thing, roll back all these executive orders or be against it in principle and not be doing that, or maybe just not hate on billionaires for the sake of hating on billionaires. I'm with you on getting the immigrants vetted. I'm with you on a bunch of things I could agree with, but I don't know. I think the Republican Party doesn't have much chance until something changes with that. But I wouldn't know where to start. And yeah, like you said, you might be up for a lot of aggravation, I guess.
Yeah, and you mentioned executive orders. I think some of them have been good, like, or at least
Yeah.
I think there's a plausible case. Some of them are good, like the rolling back of affirmative action. So that was the one Trump executive order, which Yaron Brook has singled out as the best thing Trump has done since he's been in office is repeal this executive order that I think it was first established by Lyndon Johnson, which got the affirmative action program going, and Trump undid that with an executive order. But then, of course, there's been many other executive orders which I would have a much different evaluation of. So I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing that there are executive orders at all, but I do think it can be abused, and maybe the court needs to rule certain uses of it
Yeah.
out as being illegitimate. Like if you claim that there's some emergency, and that's what's justifying your anti-immigration policies, which I think is what's going on with Trump in order to deport immigrants or maybe seize them without respecting habeas corpus rules. He's declaring an emergency, but there's not in fact an emergency. That's a bogus sort of
Yeah.
claim, I think. So I think that there is a role for the court to play in constraining him. Um, but yeah, I do think there is like you can be focused narrowly. You mentioned like you could narrowly focus on a particular issue. Like Alex is narrowly focused on energy issues, whereas I'm more of a generalist. Yaron Brook is more of a generalist, where we comment on broader issues, a broader range of issues, and I think that's partly just it's going to depend on your interests. Like, what are your goals? Like maybe you would be happy just focusing on energy, like Alex does. But if you're me, like I feel like I would rather be more of a generalist. I like to be commenting on a broader range of issues. I don't know if I'll always feel that way, but at least right now, I like to have that broader range of topics that I discuss. And you just have to think about, what is going to make you the happiest. So it's got to be self-interested about it.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Yeah. Maybe I just want to go down there and meet people, or maybe I don't. I guess I have to meet them and see. Like I say, I generally had better conversations with Americans or even anybody who's traveled abroad and seen the world, and then I feel like we're thinking a little bit harder. But maybe there's something I have to show them here locally, but either I do or I don't, I guess. Yeah.
All right. Well, I think I'm going to wrap up the call at this
Yeah,
point.
yeah. Why don't we save it for next time? I could tell you a little bit about why everybody loves European healthcare and why it's hard to convince people it's not such a paradise over there. I mean, I can tell you the ins and outs of it, but we can do that another call. I just wanted to check the connection and
Yeah.
we can do it next time. Sound
Yeah,
good?
it was glad we got to connect, and we can definitely do another call sometime about European healthcare attitudes.
Yeah.
But thanks for calling in, Jason. Appreciate it.
All right. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Yep. Have a good day. Bye-bye. Okay. Good. Glad we had to have a couple calls today. And maybe Jason will call back sometime. All right. Oh, I see the person who was trying to call in has appeared in the YouTube chat as F or 55555 Mange. He says, "Hello, I am Gubber Shib. I'm on my phone, so I had to make a new YouTube account. I will just listen for today." Okay. Um, and then Jason Adams says, "Thanks for having me." Sure. You're welcome, Jason. Thanks for calling in. Yeah, so Gubber Shib, if you want to call my screening number, I think that's the best way to start since you're a new person to my channel, let's have a little screening call like I did with Jason before he called in. Just call that number that I have pinned in the chat, 657-233-0878. And we'll just chat for a minute or so. I'll get to know you a little, find out what you're interested in talking about. And then if everything seems okay, then you can call back in to Zoom and I can take your call. But I, oh, you say you couldn't figure out how to call internationally. I am outside US. Okay, so if you are outside the US, I think you might need to dial 1 before that number because 1 is the United States country code. So for you, I guess to call the call screening number, it would be 1-657-233-0878. And you say you tried to call on Zoom and it didn't work. It asked for a meeting password. Oh, there shouldn't be a meeting password. Oh, well, yeah, there is a meeting password, a meeting ID. I think that's what it's called. And that's also that's given in the chat on YouTube, which I've pinned, 821-5018-6396 #. That's the meeting ID. And I guess you had to enter that if you made it to the waiting room. And then you press pound again to continue. So I think you did everything you needed to in order to get through on Zoom. It's just that I did not want to take your call on Zoom first. I wanted to first take your call in that separate call screening number, which is the Google Voice number. And then after you've gone through the call screening, then you could call back in on Zoom. But for first-time callers, I recommend using the call screening number first. But sorry it didn't work out today. Maybe you can call back in on Saturday. I plan to do another stream on Saturday. I usually do Wednesdays and Saturday afternoons around 1 p.m. Pacific time for a couple hours. So maybe you can catch me during that stream. Just use the call screening number first, and then hopefully we can connect. All right. Let me take a quick look at the chat. Okay. All right. I'm not going to read through all the chats that came in while I was having calls, but I'll read through them later and catch up then. But I'm going to end the stream now. So thanks everyone for coming by. I appreciate your being here. If you like the stream, I'd appreciate it if you give it a like, and I definitely appreciate any new subscribers. All right. Have a good rest of your week. And Daniel says number can't be reached even with a 1 before it. Huh. Maybe what we can try is you can I can admit you to Zoom while you're muted and your video is off, and you can just let me know in the Zoom chat what your number is, and then I can try to call you. I don't know why you can't reach my Google Voice if you put the 1 before. I actually want to try to figure this out now while I've got him here. So if you don't mind, let's try that. If you want to, if you want to call in right now to Zoom, just hit that web link like you did before, and put the put the Zoom meeting in ID in, just like you did before, and then I'll let you in, and I'll send you a Zoom chat, or you can send me a Zoom chat once you've been admitted from the waiting room, and then you can send me your number in that Zoom chat, and then I can try to call you. Or if you don't, oh, you say you'd rather not give out your phone number online? Okay, well, then I'm not going to be able to screen you. So if you call me by dialing a phone number, I'm going to see that number. It's going to show up on my end. So if you don't want me to see your number, then I'm just going to have to get you to know you through chat over time. If I see you here enough through chat, and if you seem okay, then I can take a call later. Oh, you say you wanted to ask about determinism, but I'm happy to listen to you guys talk as well. Um, so I'm just thinking now, the worst that could happen is I get a short audio interruption. So we've had trolls on in the past, and it's taken me several seconds to remove them from the Zoom call. But I think I'm more familiar now with Zoom, so I could remove someone much quicker. So if there is a problem, I, I think I'll be able to end the call very quickly, um, maybe in like 1 second or a couple seconds, if not sooner. So I don't think it's so maybe I'll take your call, but let's uh, let's not do it today. Maybe you can call or you can come back my next stream Saturday and chat a little more, and then you can try to get on the next stream, and maybe I'll take your call then. If you don't want to give out your phone number. So I guess that's the cost. If you don't want to give out your phone number, then it's going to take more time for me to get to know you through chat before I'm comfortable taking a call. I have to figure out exactly, like, yeah, I'm not sure exactly what level of risk I want to take. That's something I have to think about. So I will, but anyways, if you come back in a future stream and try again, maybe maybe you can come on. You say, by the way, oh, I guess you're about to type something else. I'll give you, you might want to Google about double slit experiment. I think you might have misinterpreted it. Maybe. Okay. Yeah, it's been a long time since I've read about that. It's also possible that I misinterpret it, he says. Okay. All right. Well, if you come back next time, maybe we can discuss it. But anyways, I'm going to end this stream for today, and appreciate you all being here, and have a good rest of your week.